All right, greetings. Welcome back to Environmental Epidemiology. In this next set of videos, we're going to review a little bit on descriptive epidemiology because it's been a little bit of time since we got to that. And we're going to also prepare for the upcoming exam that'll come out maybe in a few weeks, couple weeks or so. I'll give you guys more information on that as we get closer to it, maybe even in the next few days. All right, moving on. So descriptive epidemiology during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I've replaced my ecologic studies slide with this particular image. And in this image, we can see that there's 84,000 cases almost in New York as of 6 o'clock on April 1st. And California is approaching 10,000 cases. New Jersey's 22,000 cases. Thankfully, here in Kentucky, we're still below 1,000 cases, so we've got a smaller population, and there's also some other just good factors at play here. And one of those major factors is likely good leadership and good support for our community in supporting the public health measures that have been requested of our citizenry. Now, reviewing a little bit, what makes something a descriptive epidemiology study? And these are the types of studies where we get basic information about definitions, measurements, interpretations, observations are taken or obtained and then drafted and then disseminated or shared so that we can understand health-related states or events by person, place, and time. And these are not like the interventional studies or experimental studies like clinical trials or community trials, in the sense that these are observational, in nature. And we're not assigning anybody any particular exposures. We're just observing what is going on in their life. The introductory ones we talk about are the case studies, the cross-sectional studies, and then the correlational or ecologic designs. We've already discussed these to a certain degree, so this should be a review. Case reports, we know, are where we get a write-up about an individual. Case series are where we get the write-up or the description about multiple individuals. And we know that in the case report, we're focusing on an individual, often with some sort of unusual disease or a new disease in a specific community or in a specific population. And typically, the symptoms and other characteristics, maybe their, tests related to like things in their blood, all of that may be provided. We also typically get things like personal characteristics, age, gender, maybe their occupation, all that kind of stuff. But again, a report is singular, a case series is plural. Both the case report and the case series are helpful for us understanding a new disease in a particular population or community, and for alerting the general medical community. Remember, the first HIV/AIDS ones showed up in MMWR, Morbidity Mortality Weekly Report, and we will see those likely showing up, if they're not already there, for the coronavirus. So, moving on. Case series. This is the expansion of the case report so that it actually includes many individuals. And again, we're describing some sort of new or atypical event, such as COVID-19. So this is useful for describing rare diseases or new diseases, and then alerting the general medical or public health community to be on the lookout and what to potentially be looking for. And in the past, we described that you might use this for describing the distribution of cancer workers or identifying a cancer cluster in a community. And in this example, we're going to focus on a case series here with the novel coronavirus. Now, I just want to let you know that the initial cases that were reported that we know about were in Wuhan, which is a huge city. The city's probably got 11 or 12 million people in it. That's larger than New York City, which has got about 8 or 9 million people. So Wuhan is a huge city. Now, After the disease started in Wuhan, it then moved on to other parts of China. Wuhan is a big trading center. It's also a transportation hub that connects much of China to not just China, but also to the rest of the world. So as the virus moved out of Wuhan into other communities, presumably not already there, we have to understand what person-to-person or community spread looks like in those communities. So in this paper, they provide clinical findings in a group of patients infected with this virus outside of Wuhan, and they then do this case series for us. And their case definitions were the ones that were used from the WHO. And only patients with lab-confirmed infection were enrolled in the study. And they collected data on 62 patients admitted to the hospital with confirmed infection. And these were also hospitalized people. The WHO's guidance may have changed on this since that initial paper was drafted. And they also obtained, their lab confirmation data from actually getting the RNA from the virus from sputum and throat swab samples and then testing them using real-time reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction, or RT-PCR, which or RT-qPCR. Those are essentially synonymous. We'll discuss that more here in a second, or a few minutes. So we're going to look a little bit more at the WHO definitions for suspect case, probable case, confirmed case. And we're going to discuss what does it mean to be COVID-19 positive or negative, and what does it mean to be SARS coronavirus 2 positive. So typically, when we have an outbreak or an event with an infectious disease, you have the disease, which actually is associated with the symptomology, where they have maybe a need to be at the hospital, or they have to go to the clinic, and they present symptoms that then allow them to get tested, and then those tests then show up with a laboratory confirmation. And we can characterize people as suspected, probable, or confirmed cases based upon a series of events. And we would then call those folks COVID-19 positive if they are confirmed and they have the symptoms. Now, the guidance has been changing on this, so there's a reason to just go ahead and call them all COVID-19 positive if they actually have a lab confirmation of having the virus. Now, that's unique. Not all diseases do they do that. So we're going to just look at a little kind of a Venn diagram that I've put together for you. So we've got this huge group of people that we might call, the subclinical in many cases, but some of these people may actually be clinical, meaning that they have signs or symptoms that would warrant maybe further investigation or even bringing them to a hospital. So SARS coronavirus 2 positive people. We don't know who all these people are. This is the iceberg, right? And then here is the tip of the iceberg. This is the stuff that people see. People have the fever, and they also have the cough or the shortness of breath that brings them to the clinic. So this group of people, we start them off as suspect cases. And they may have a fever or something like that that brings them in, or that they're at home. And then after a little extra kind of investigation, maybe even done over the phone, they may be lumped into this probable case category, where then they are assigned to take a test, or they're waiting for a lab test, or the lab test has been done and it's inconclusive. But among these probable cases that then eventually get their test done, some of them will come back positive. Some will come back inconclusive or negative, and they may stay in this area where some of them may actually truly have the virus, and some of them may not have the virus. there's going to be a lot of suspect cases that are potentially out there at this stage that have not had the virus, that may have the cold or influenza or some other coronavirus or some other condition. So they actually may not have the virus and just be treated as suspect. But if they have the clinical signs or symptoms, then they're a probable case. And then if they get the test done, and they stay probable until they get the test done, and when they get the test done and they're deemed positive, then they become COVID-19 positive. Now, one thing the WHO has done, and this addresses some of the drive-through testing, is they're saying that anybody who then tests positive for SARS coronavirus 2 is also COVID-19 positive. So if you are deemed to actually have the virus circulating in your body, they're going to go ahead and call you coronavirus 19 positive. And you don't necessarily have to have had the symptomology. So these are getting closer and closer to being synonymous terms. So let's look at the WHO's information on this. And the way we look at HIV, we get some to think of things like the way we looked at HIV, where you could theoretically be HIV positive, but you didn't actually have AIDS. But during the actual outbreak and the pandemic that HIV AIDS become, then we really started focusing much of our attention on being HIV positive, because that's where we had to intervene. If you just intervene on persons with AIDS, you lose the battle. So here we have to intervene on people who actually have the coronavirus, and the way the communications seem to be going these days is they are making those two terms synonymous, which is, different than some outbreaks of the past. So you still have to actually be confirmed to have the virus right now to be COVID-19 positive. So we'll see how this changes, because there's going to be some other tests that are out there that are immunological tests that show whether you've ever been exposed or not. And those are going to be very helpful moving forward from an epidemiological perspective, as well as for just protecting human health and tracing back like where everything started. So let's look at the WHO definition that you guys see on this particular page. And I'm going to pull up the actual WHO document right here that everyone is using that says global surveillance for COVID-19 caused by human infection with COVID-19 virus. And COVID-19 virus is SARS coronavirus 2. All right, so what makes a person a suspect case? Any acute respiratory illness, so fever, and then one sign or symptom. It could be a cough or a shortness of breath. And they've had to have a history of traveling somewhere where there's potential for community transmission. So they could have traveled to New York City. They could have traveled to a lot of places in the U.S., and they've got that now, and they may be suspect. Also, if they've been in contact with a person that we know that has had it, and they have any type of acute respiratory illness, even just a dry cough, they may not even have a fever, they could be deemed as a suspect case. And then the third situation is they've got a severe acute respiratory illness, something that requires them to be hospitalized, and they have fever or something else. They don't have to have been around anyone else. We're not going to try to figure that out. They've got a severe acute respiratory illness and require hospitalization. They're also a suspect case. And this could include the flu for some people. So we're not saying they actually are a case. They're just a suspect. Probable cases are cases where the suspect case is waiting for a test. A suspect case for whom testing could not be performed for any reason. Or it's a person where the test has been done, but it was inconclusive. The test was done, but inconclusive. And then lastly, we've got the confirmed cases. And a confirmed case is a person with lab confirmation of COVID-19 infection, irrespective of clinical signs or symptoms. So go ahead and disregard suspect case or probable case. Those things get them to get the test done more easily. However, if they end up having a test done because they participated in one of these drive-through, drive-up clinics where they're allowing people to get these types of tests done, which is the case for some parts of the world, and may suddenly become part of the United States here in a little bit, you could become COVID-19 confirmed as a case just by having a lab confirmation of having the actual virus present in your body. So that is what makes it a confirmed case. So I'm going to pause this video here in a second, as then we start discussing a little bit about what it takes to become a confirmed case. What lab steps have to be done? What is RT-qPCR? Because it's really important to understand these things. So I'm going to stop it right here. And again, if you have any questions, by the way, you can always email me, jason.marion@eku.edu. All right. Thank you.